hearing for the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ted Kempton, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff will then present their report. At this point, we will ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the commissioners will ask questions in the same order as the presentation. Next, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. After the public hearing is closed, no further testimony can be given. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on Chapter 27 of the City Code of Ordinances, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review Committee comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence cell phones. And I'll start on my left with the introduction of commissioners.
Elena Ketchum, Attorney Representative.
Tim Jones, building contractor.
Dan Myers, architect.
Brian Hammond, architect.
John Prokop, I practice architecture.
Okay, and then also here for support, we have Alexis Guzman, Ron Vila, and Attorney Dana Crosby Collier. All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm a planner with Historic Preservation. Moving down our agenda items, we have conflicts of interest and ex parte communication. We'll have legal address those issues.
Good evening, Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. I'd like to inquire if anyone has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening.
I do not.
Okay, and has anyone engaged in an ex parte communication regarding any item on the agenda?
I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Under continuations, we have one reflected, which is ARC-25-00000171. This is for the address of 800 South Packwood Avenue. The application was deemed incomplete by staff. They are being continued to the Monday, May 5th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30 p.m. And if we could get a motion for that, please.
Yeah, I move to continue ARC 25-00000171 at 800 South Packwood Avenue to the Monday, May 5th public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I'll second.
All right, seeing that we have a second and seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
We are ready for the swearing. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand. Everybody's
audience?
going to testify this evening?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. May be seated.
So moving to our first agenda item, which is ARC-24-00000410. This is for the address of 1822 West Hills Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. There is a contributing structure associated with this parcel. It dates back to 1922. The underlying zoning is RS60. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for site work, for fence replacement, and partial relocation. At this time, I'd like to go through the photo presentation with you. I'd like to start with the 1929 Sanborn map, give you reference for a lot of different things. In this particular case, it just shows you where it's located within the local boundaries within Hyde Park is the red, and it's in the southern portion. This is our vicinity map of the current conditions. You see it's closer to Bay Shore and Howard. It is on the corner of Hills and Albany. This is of an overhead shot, and I wanted to zoom in the parcel here. They're coming in for a fence. Front yard fences are prohibited in the Hyde Park Historic District. By zoning classification, you see the rectangle here. The front yard is the lesser dimensions of the parcel, so the front would be facing to the west. To the north is the more ceremonial entrance. The request this evening does not challenge either of those frontages. I just wanted to point out for future reference. And then a tighter overhead shot. Once again, it's on the corner of Hills and Albany. This would be the front by zoning, but there is an entrance and a stoop over here, which is more of the ceremonial entrance for the parcel and how it's used today. So I'm going to show you some pictures of this north elevation off of Hills. Which is here how the front porch interacts with the retaining wall and then the sidewalk. Staying with that elevation, you see the retaining wall, how it encompasses the site. You see a portion of the fence in the back. And then here, you see the back of the house, the portion of the fence that I just showed, the detached accessory structure and where the fence is currently. Looking back at that elevation, this is the stoop, and we just worked our way down. Moving to the other elevation that faces Albany. This is the zoning front, but you see that it doesn't receive anybody there or have any architectural details. Along that elevation, the retaining wall continues. You have your sidewalk, you have your setback, and then the fence is over here. And as the fence dies into the primary structure on that side, this is the approximate location of the replacement of the fence here and here. You see it's a wood fence. The request is in front of you today is because they're bringing in alternative material, one that staff has not approved and this board hasn't approved. So I think it's time that we look at different materials and to see the compatibility within the district. So at this time, I'll hand it over to the owners to do their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Vila. My name is Rob Carey, live at 1822 West Hills, and you introduce yourself.
Oh, my name is Lena Carey.
Can you get that? So this shows the site plan for the property. As Mr. Vila pointed out, the West Hills at the top of the screen there and Albany to the left. You see the proposed fence is just replacing exactly what's there with the exception, slide that up just a little bit. With the exception on the Albany side, we are looking to move it out to the front of the house, to in line with the front of the house, not beyond there. So it would move out about 6 to 8 feet over there. First, I want to also, I should have started out with this, but to say that the home was built in 1922. It's a Craftsman bungalow. My wife and I chose to live in Hyde Park because we love the neighborhood, but in no small part because it's a historic district. And we value that, and I also want to say I value what you do in making sure that historic district retains the characteristics of a historic district. So I wouldn't want to do anything that would violate that, for sure. Recognize the vital role you play there. The first slide just shows 3 pictures of the house that you have already just seen. Go ahead with that one. So why are we here? As Mr. Vila said, there's really, the reason for being here is not so much about the fence, which was damaged during Hurricane Milton. It's really about replacing it with a different material. And why are we requesting a different material? What we're talking about here is a composite wood fence. Really looking at that for aesthetics, durability, environmental responsibility, and low maintenance. So now I want to talk about each of those factors. Why a wood composite? Aesthetics. It's a wood-like look. It provides depth and shadowing. Comes in earth tone, which is complementary to the bungalow architecture. Durability. It's been independently tested and certified to withstand 130-mile-an-hour winds and gusts up to 147 miles an hour. I have to report on that if you'd like to see that. The posts don't degrade or rot, and it has interlocking pickets. The environmental sustainability piece is 95% recycled material, along with the wood, and the manufacturer is LEED certified. Low maintenance, won't rot, won't split, no painting or staining, and it's resistant to insects as well. This slide shows what the fence would look like and includes a picture of what the gate would look like. We would have a gate off of the driveway side where there's a gate today, and a gate on the Albany side where there's also a gate today to access into the backyard. The fence would be 6 foot tall. And at this point, I want to pass around some samples for you to see. The fencing, like this, they interlock. That's how it would go together. So with the next slide, I'm going to show you a typical section of what the fence would look like and how it's assembled. It would be, as I said, 6 foot tall. It would have caps at each of the posts, 8 foot spacing, with the posts set down into concrete into the ground. Let me go ahead to the next slide. Yeah. So what kind of feedback have we received? So the staff findings indicated that the application and proposed material is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. The material and characteristics are compatible with the period and style of the historic buildings and maintain standards reflected in the historic district. We also have a letter that should be in your packet that was from the Historic Hyde Park Neighborhood Association. I think that's the letter that you're seeing now. And in that, they concur with the ARC staff recommendations that the application and proposed materials are consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. And additionally, the adjacent neighbors have come out in favor of the material and fence replacement as well. In closing, I just want to express my sincere gratitude to the dedicated professionals of the ARC staff. Mr. Vila and his staff have been super to work with throughout this. It's not what we do every day, obviously. It is what they do, and they've been very accommodating in doing that. I had personally spent 30 years leading a Department of Transportation for another state. Not all 30 years, the last 4, though I did that. And I just want to say I had almost 8,000 employees. I definitely understand the challenges of what you do and the different viewpoints that you hear. And just want to compliment the staff for really extraordinary public service. I saw it. I think y'all have a really good group of people helping you through this process. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Great, thank you very much. We're going to hear from staff first.
Good evening, Commissioner. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. On your staff report here, the reason that you're seeing this is because, as I stated, it's a new material coming forward. Right now, basically, when we get a request that comes in, we either direct them to the wood or there's some metal installation details that we've approved in the past as well. Vinyl comes up very often as a substitute material. That's one that we don't approve administratively, and the board has not approved it either. So we're looking for alternative materials that complement the district moving forward. Having said that, he did mention that there's 2 letters of support in the file. The staff's finding that this application and proposed material is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. We've been working on this project for a while. He tabled it, and then he wanted to bring it back, so that's why it's here today. We believe that the material and characteristics are compatible with the period and style of the historic building that it's associated with and Hyde Park in general. When you look on page 4 of the staff report, I also included a section of our Hyde Park design guidelines, what's permissible to review. And the first bullet item there is, it's permissible to design new fences and walls that are compatible with the historic fences and walls in Hyde Park Historic District in scale, height, materials, color, and texture. So we believe it meets that criteria. And then the second item that is permissible is to design new fences and walls that are compatible with the style or period of building which they are being added to. So for these reasons, we're here today. We had him bring samples for you to touch and feel, and then he brought some literature as well. So I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone in the audience that is here to speak for or against this project? Okay, seeing no one, we will go with Commissioner's questions, and I'll start on my right.
Could you bring up the site plan again, please?
This would be the applicant.
And could you zoom into the bottom of the site plan, where you're intending to move the gate out? Can you explain why?
Yeah.
To move the fence and the gate out to the face of the building?
Yeah, just to provide some additional space in the backyard around the pool, that's all.
Okay. There's no hardship, there's no tree, trunk, or anything?
No, I mean, literally to provide extra 6 or 8 feet in the backyard.
Okay.
We really honestly don't use that space outside the fence, and we do use our backyard a lot, so we thought that would be useful to us. And we didn't think violated anything because it only went to the front of the building.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time.
No questions.
Can you tell me how long this product is? Can you tell me how long this product has been on the market?
No, sir, I'm not sure. The product manufacturer has been in the market with other materials for years and years. I mean, what I've shown you there is Trex. I mean, it's been around, I don't know, decade plus. I don't know, but a long time.
Right.
The fencing, I don't know. It is warranted for 25 years.
Okay. It would be interesting to know if, what this fence is going to look like in 5 years.
I do have a they have a little, I hope, thought I put a business card. They gave, do you remember seeing that? A little business card with the different colors and the change in coloration. It does fade somewhat. Do you see that?
Which color are you looking?
Specifically, we were thinking of the gray.
The Winchester gray, yeah.
But would not, I would proffer that would not be a deal killer, so to speak, for us. I mean, we're open to others. Probably would not do charcoal black, though.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
Does Trex offer in this material a wood-grained finish to it, or is it just perfectly smooth?
I do not believe so. I mean, what we've got there is what they have. Which I think is fairly compatible with, I know other fences in the neighborhood are wood, but they've been painted, and you get a finish that kind of mutes any wood grain. But no, that's the finish.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
My only question, the existing fence was affected in the current hurricane, to what extent?
It's several panels that came down. There's rotting, you know, and a lot of the posts. It's been up for, I mean, I think, what, 15 years,
at
something
least.
like that. It's in very bad condition.
Yeah, I guess it was in Mr. Avila's picture. There was a picture of the side fence. A tree had fallen on the fence, so parts of the top were cracked apart where the gate was.
Yeah.
And then other sections going down the back literally blew over. There, it's held up my words, duct tape and baling wire today. It is up, but not by much, and that's why we were trying to take care of it. We need to replace the fence. We're gonna replace the fence.
Yeah.
And we just were really looking for that long-term durability and thought it would be something that will consistently look as it is the day it goes in for the, at least 25 years, I would hope.
And in the back where the pool is, there's landscaping. I think I saw palm tree or something.
Oh,
Maybe
on-
that's on the adjoining.
On our side of the property, we have,
Eureka Palms.
rocks and the Eureka palms, and then on the other side, they have their yard, and they're interested actually in doing this with us, so.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, could you put the site plan back up, please? And there's a note on, I think it's the bottom right, the way we're seeing it, highlighted in red about conflicts with roots. Can you show me where that's gonna happen?
Yeah. Yeah, so, that was a note that staff asked us to add on, and there is a tree here. No, can't really see it there. The trees are marked with an X with a, yellow circle for the, less than 23-inch trees, and then there's out in the front yard, well, I guess zoning side yard, front yard for us, the blue one is the 27 to 31 inch. So both of, why they're on there is because they're, within that
Sure.
circular area around the tree that's required.
So
So
like-
we just said that we would avoid any roots with any fence posts that go in.
Okay, so that was my question. What is the plan? And you're gonna dig until you don't find a root? And then
Yeah,
you're
just
gonna-
put the,
okay.
right,
All right.
right. And the posts can, the way this is put together with the spacing, you can shrink the spacing on that to,
Okay.
8-foot max, but then you can go
So-
less than that.
In the 2 minutes that we had to look at this material, it looks like there is a metal slat on the top rail, and I'm assuming on the bottom is rail, and that's what gives it the rigidity of this fence?
Right.
Okay, so then that can be cut into
Yeah.
shorter lengths.
Yeah.
Got it. Did you at all explore, I appreciate the issues with wood maintenance.
Sure.
I'm in this district, and wood is the bane of my existence. But did you explore, as opposed to going to Trex, did you explore putting a non-wood post in the ground and then having wood panels to alleviate the rotting of the wood post?
No, I mean, we just looked at a system, really.
Okay. All right, can you put up the couple of pictures, or I don't know if they were all on one page on yours? I'm interested in how the fence touches the house. And if you could, all right, so the one on the left is a pretty good example. So that's looking from your driveway, is that correct?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is.
Okay, so it's coming right up to the face of the house,
And there's a post.
and there's a post. So I guess my question would be, would you be open to the idea of that fence dying inboard of that trim board, of the white trim board, as opposed to flush?
Yeah.
Just asking,
Yeah,
okay?
no, that's, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, those were all my questions. Is it any other questions from commissioners? All right, seeing no more questions, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you so choose.
I would just say that I appreciate the tasks that you have. I said that I appreciate the historic district and that you all are in the responsible role of keeping a National Historic District integrity what it is. I get that. I don't believe that there's anything we're doing that will interfere with that. I think, as I said, that the natural wood tones, the shadowing, all the features that I think are appropriate. I think staff has, said the same. The Historic Hyde Park Neighborhood Association has said the same, and that they concur with that. Would love the opportunity to do it. Frankly, it probably costs about 3 times as much. So, I mean, the easy thing to do is do the wood.
Sure.
But we would like to do it for, number one, for the long-term durability, but also, as I go around the neighborhood and you can see the pictures of the fence, I mean, it's just an older fence and it looks like an older fence. And I think to have something that maintains the the nice look for a long period, but fits the architectural look, makes sense. So that's why we would like to pursue on this and look for your, positive consideration. So thank you again for the time and what you all do every day. Regardless of the outcome here, I appreciate what you do.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we're going to close the public portion of this hearing, and
Oh,
we'll close the public portion of the hearing, and we will move on to commissioner discussion. The floor is open.
When that occurs. I do take your Commissioner Kempton's notation on the photograph on the left here, and that's why I wanted him to leave it up, that piece of fencing there do recess behind the corner boards. And I also, in the photograph on the right, where the fence is currently, I do take exception to bringing that out to the face of the smaller gable to the left, because what that does is obscures the geometry of the house from the street. Rather than the fence being submissive to the house, it covers parts of the house. And we as a board in general have maintained that, cars have to be beyond the face of the house, the fences have to be beyond the face of the house. And so I take umbrage for that move to pull the fence out and cover that right-hand part of the gable on the right-hand photograph. And I think it should stay in its existing location to maintain the integrity of the appearance of the district, and also be behind the corner board on that side of the fence also.
Okay.
Well, I do like the material. I like the detailing that it provides along the post, with the post cap. I like the shadow lines, and I think that this is would be or is a great product for a fence. I mean, it's not going to warp and start looking like an old fence, in that amount of time. So I can appreciate this and the lines that it creates.
I think it's pretty compelling that both staff and the Hyde Park Association have approved or are in favor of our approving this. And it does seem like a good thing to do at this point. Not every design of this fence, I think, is appropriate for the district, clearly. And more than likely not every color, but we will sort of discover that, I think. But I think I think we are, I think we're ready to approve a Trex fence.
I would agree that the Trex material, I believe, fits longevity-wise. Also, the appearance on this design of the fence fits the area, so I would agree.
I agree about not bringing the fence up to the edge of the house. I think it just makes it look a little bit like a block, whereas right now there's some difference, and so I agree with that. I guess this is really the test case for this material, and that after this, if somebody else comes forward with, they have a wood fence that was destroyed, or
I think it's still a
staff
case-by-case
will then-
basis.
I'm sorry?
It's still a case-by-case basis.
Especially with design.
Yeah, I don't think this sets precedent for now everybody who wants to come in front of the board
And have a
with a
Trex.
Trex fence, like what another commissioner said, that this particular style of fence, this particular design of fence, and this particular color for this particular house and this particular site can be approved. But I don't think we're setting a precedent for everything.
I think that sounds good, and I agree with the design and detail, but in front of city council, I think it'll have a lot of resonance that we approve Trex, if it goes that way.
Yeah, I go through all this, I go through this all the time in my historic preservation architecture, where alternative materials are subjected to being approved or disapproved by the State Historic Preservation Officer. That also goes to the Secretary of the Interior Standards. It's only on a case-by-case basis that an alternative material is approved. It is not approved for every project just because it was approved for one project in one location in one condition. The state of Florida doesn't.
I don't disagree with you.
Right,
And
I
that's
know.
our stance. It's
Well, I'm
different
just saying, in the
city
state of
councils.
Florida, that's not the case. Other states have approved it, and once it's approved in the material, it does get approved for that state. But in our state, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think my only point was eventually, right, we may not see these because staff will approve.
That's a good
the
point.
material.
It will, because fences are typically staff approval, which is what we want.
Right.
And I believe this is going to move in that direction, and we can ask staff, but that's gonna be
Right.
the move. That's why this one's in front of us, is so we can set the tone, you know.
But again, not every one of these Trex fences is appropriate for Hyde Park.
Yeah, we'll
Not
leave
every
it up
one
to
they
staff
make.
to-
Right.
They make good
Right.
decisions on bringing them to us, from a detailed design standpoint, for sure.
And even the location,
Yeah.
you know, the location still may require a Trex fence to come in front of us.
Yeah.
Because of where it's being placed or how it's being modified from its existing condition.
Yeah, we may not see wood again, but, but we'll take that, I guess, as it comes. And the only thing I do want to note is in the report, about the issue of it being set back on the side, it does say what's not permissible is, fences on the front building line of his existing structure. And even though this really isn't the front building line, there is something about setting it back and not setting it flush with all the way around on the structure. So I guess if we were to go that way, we'd have to ask the homeowner if they're willing to
Once a motion
back.
is presented,
Well-
then we'll.
get there.
In fact, this is the front of the house from a zoning standpoint,
Good point, yeah.
wherein you wouldn't be able to bring it to the front of the facade. You'd have to recess it somewhat at the front of the house.
So to comply with those standards, for other cases going forward, that's why we'd want it to be pushed back, to stay consistent within the district.
So it sounds like we have a motion percolating.
Put these on. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing for ARC 24-00000410 at 1822 West Hills Avenue, with the following conditions. That the fence on the zoned frontage be recessed beyond the facade of the main geometry of the house, and that both sides of the fences where they join the house be connected past the corner boards. Because, based upon finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines and Chapter 27 of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances and the Secretary of the Interior Standards.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Does the applicant understand the conditions of that?
I think so. So, not connecting there to what used to be the front porch in 1922, and being placed
Yeah,
back.
so on the Albany side, it would be where you currently have it, except it's gonna go behind your white trim board on the house. So you'll move it back 4 inches, 6 inches, whatever it is. And then where it connects on the hillside, you're gonna move it back behind that trim board.
Yep. That's fine.
Okay, great. All right, so we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Can we get those, do you still have the samples?
Yep. we'll collect those.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff for Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is ARC-25-00000155. This is for the address of 1806 West Bristol Avenue. This is also in the Hyde Park Historic District. There are two structures currently on site. One is a contributing structure, which is the accessory structure that dates back to 1920. The primary structure is non-contributing. As this project moves forward, staff will review the non-contributing structure once submission is made, and that can be removed administratively. The underlying zoning attached to this is RS 50. The square footage of both structures are approximately 7,000 square foot. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a two-story single-family residence with site improvements. The accessory structure is not part of this request in front of you. The architectural style on the request is a contemporary prairie. Moving through the documentation, the photo documentation. You see the density within Hyde Park. You see the location of the structure. It's on the corner of Packwood and Bristol. This is our vicinity map. You see the proximity to Hyde Park Village as a reference point. And as I stated, it's a corner parcel on Packwood and Bristol. There are some trees on site. Natural Resources did review this before it came forward, and the site plan presented can move forward. This is just showing the non-contributing structure that's there. You see the setback that's established here. And moving forward for new construction, what's very important is that the new construction fits in harmoniously within the district. We look at the setbacks from the property line with the historic fabric that's there, not the established non-contributing. And then we also look at elevation from grade as a starting point. Moving around the structure that's here. I just wanted to show a couple shots of the detached accessory structure that's not part of this, but to show some of the site coverage. There's a lot of concrete here that is part of this request. They're going to remove it and put strips in, Ribbon Drive, more traditionally associated with Hyde Park. Some of the surrounding properties this is to the north. This is across Packwood. And then it might come up as you look at this, the structure that's being introduced this evening is masonry, and the accessory structure is frame. So I wanted to show you, although compatibility within the district between the primary structure and the detached accessory structure is more prevalent, but there are many examples within the period of significance. This dates back to 1929 is the Sanborn map that I like to always show. Property in question is, let me get my bearings, Bristol and Packwood, Bristol and Fremont, which is here. You see the detached accessory structure was there. There was no primary structure. This corner here is prevalent for that. What was to the north was no primary structure and a detached accessory structure, which now they have a structure there. And over here they have a non-contributing one-story structure with a period accessory structure. Looking at this Sanborn map, as you look at the primary structures, which is CMU, and a detached accessory structure that's frame. It happens here, it happens here. On the Jeton block, the red indicates brick construction on the primary structure, and then you see the detached structures are all frame. So my point is, not 100% of the times are they compatible. So you have that disconnect from the primary structure to the detached accessory structure within the period of significance. Here you have a block CMU building with a detached frame accessory structure, and just throughout the district. So I wanted to point that out. If you need reference in the future, I could show these as well. At this point, the agent could address the board and provide their request. Hello, good evening. My name is Hanso, and I'm the agent. I'll go ahead and start with the site plan. So I'll go over the site plan, as Ron has already made some items and notated them. So in here. So currently, there is an existing detached accessory structure that's not part of this review. Over to the left is the proposed main residence, and then we're also proposing to build a connecting breezeway right in this area as well. As Ron mentioned, we're gonna cut some of the existing concrete driveway and bring back the ribbons that match the historic nature. We're also gonna have a primary residence facing Fremont, and then a secondary entrance facing Bristol. What we've done with the architecture as well is, so we don't have flat facades across the street, is we're gonna introduce recesses where we push and pull certain volumes. For example, this front porch right here, main entrance, there is a city exception that allows the porch to protrude past the front setback here. And then we're showing some of the green highlighted. That is where we're gonna have the grass. Ron may mention to indicate what the existing versus proposed impervious is gonna be. So we will cross that 50% impervious threshold. So we'll consult with a civil engineer to design underground retention for that. And then I'm gonna bounce back to the site plan a little later on. As Ron mentioned, we're going for a contemporary prairie-style home. So if we look here, this is the main front elevation. We are going to have a front porch that protrudes the closest to the street, and then we're gonna provide the second layer that's recessed, which would be the first floor walls. And then we're gonna have further recess on the second floor. That way we provide multiple layers, and so we don't have just flat facades across the street. And then we also have the volume, which would be a second story and a first story off to the right as well. And again, to break up some of that wall composition as well. And then retaining walls that match the historic neighborhood will be introduced as well. And then this is the elevation facing Bristol. This is showing the secondary entry as well. This would be a stair volume, completely double story. We also have elements of a sleeping porch, which kind of ties back to some of the elements used in this neighborhood as well. And then, of course, the retaining wall that wraps around the perimeter of the property. And then doors would be single, swinging doors with sidelights on either side. Here are the other two elevations. So this is a south-facing elevation where we'll have a raised deck. No one will be able to see this from the street. And then steps coming down into the backyard area. And then this is also the side elevation. People on the street will be able to see some of this as well. So then we continue the retaining wall back up to a front 1/3 of the house, roughly. And then this also shows other elements, the hip roof, which matches the prairie home style, cement stucco, and then we'll use stack bond brick pattern. Over here is a pretty simple wall section here. We'll use aluminum clad windows that will also be recessed. More likely they'll be in the black finish, which matches most of the windows in the historic neighborhood. Composite trim, 3-foot roof overhangs. We would go a little bit deeper if we could, but there's a building code that says 3 foot is the maximum. And then the use of stucco and cap at the top will break, and I'll go back to this detail at a later point. And I'll go through some of the renderings here. The color will be to be determined. So here it shows the retaining wall, the grand entry steps up to the front porch, and then we also have the entry wall recessed as well, first floor walls, the sleeping porch effect at the top, and then we show the second floor walls being recessed as well. And then the hip roof as well, which looks a lot less prominent than it does in the elevations. And then some of the elements that you see in Prairie Homes, which is the cap at the top of the brick, and then the horizontal datum lines as well. And then we have the break in that foundation. Here is the northwest corner. The north elevation. All right. So now I'll take the time to go through some of the comments that were made through the initial review. The first one being define the style of the architecture. As Ron mentioned, we're going for a contemporary prairie style home. Indicate on the site plan the location of mechanicals. Go ahead. Oh, could we get back on the screen? Could you put the projector back on the screen so I can see?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, yeah, I just can't see if you guys were there. Now I can see it. So right here would be the mechanical equipment tucked in between the main house and the accessory structure tucked away from view of the street. At this time, we are not going to do a fence, so that will not be part of this review. Additional details were requested for the retaining wall. That will be kept pretty simple to match this historic fabric. Which would be about 2 feet high with a rounded top. Yeah, that's, yeah. I'm taking off the screen, so there we go. So about 2 foot tall with a rounded top, cement stucco, and then that would go around the perimeter. All hardscape materials should be period correct. So we go back to the site plan. There's already existing scoring on the sidewalk, so we will continue that. Anywhere that repairs will be made. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to introduce back the ribbons in front of the garage. And then we will continue to use concrete as the steps and the flooring for the front porches. Okay, we already talked about the status of the accessory structure. Ron mentioned in the beginning. Revisit the break from the siding to the foundation. So I'll just pull up one of the renderings here. So what we do here, we'll do a stucco base across the bottom. And then right where the finished floor elevation starts is where we'll propose to start the brick. Illustrate that windows will be installed period correct. That's where the windows being recessed will come into play. Break, redesign the roof to reduce the overall massing. So that's where the roof overhangs are 3 feet deep to match some of the styles of the Prairie home. We will also do a low pitch on the hip roof as well, again to emphasize more the horizontality of the project. The comment was made to eliminate the foundation planters along the base of the building. That was eliminated in this rendition here. Further break up the wall planes along the west and north elevation to reduce the building mass. So we made several efforts along the way through design. And in order to provide interest of the north and west facades, that's where we introduce, as I mentioned, volumes that protrude closest to the street, and then the second layer being the first floor walls, and then the third layer being the second floor walls, being recessed as well. Eliminate the double entry doors and substitute a historically referenced solution. That's where we're going to go to another one. So in the renderings you may have previously seen, we had a double door, and those are now substituted for a single door with sidelights on either side. Okay. And then as far as the material palette, so as far as the trim, we're going to go with a composite, like a James Hardy board for durability, probably a vented soffit, and then a composite fascia trim, and then cement stucco that will most likely be sand texture, and then the brick will be stack bond. I realize in that pattern it's hard to find a stock image of a stack bond pattern, but it's going to be more likely a whitewash brick. And then this is a type of door hardware that we're using exterior, and then the type of exterior sconces design. And then here's an example of the front door, being the single door with the side lights on either side. And then the roofing will be shingles. The patio ceilings will be a wood species, textured and stained. And then the window styles will be metal, aluminum clad. Okay. And then to wrap up my presentation, Ron has mentioned some of these buildings on the context. This is directly across from us. Let me back up. Which is a pretty massive building. They actually have about 3 stories. We're only proposing for 2. And then we made efforts, as I mentioned before, to recess the walls. That way the house doesn't seem so daunting to the scale. And just to the east of our property, on Packwood Avenue, is this house, which is currently probably, I would say, about 100 feet long. And again, it has 3 stories, I believe. And then it doesn't do as good of a job of recessing any walls in the 2nd floor as well. And then the closest house I could find on Fremont Avenue, that was a multi-story, is this house is 2 houses down, which is a 2-story, which again doesn't make any effort to recess the 2nd floor walls. And then it also has a partial 3rd floor within the attic as well. I also went back out on site. And then I took measurements from the edge of the inside of the sidewalk over to the next obstruction for each one of these houses here. So for example, 906 South Fremont this is where the current porch line stands, and then where the wall line stands. And then I can see, as you can see, we're pretty much right on par when it comes to the Fremont Avenue area as far as where these lines of alignment stand. And then over to the east, there's only one house directly next to us, and that is the 901 South Packwood. And again, their wall lines, it's actually closer to the street than we are, with the exception of the only stair bottom that protrudes out, and then the porch entry. And then we basically match up with their 2nd wall line as well. Okay? And I'll now let Mark, who's a homeowner, go ahead and speak.
Good evening. My name is Mark Loknoth, along with my wife and my son Rex. We're the owners of 1806 Bristol Avenue. Just wanted to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about, why we chose the area and why we fell in love with the area. Since my son was like 3 years old, we would always take him to Hyde Park to ride his bike, and we've, been through the village and all through the streets, and we just kind of fell in love with the area. So when the opportunity came to purchase a property in the area, we knew it would be perfect for our forever home. And then that's what we've been, thinking about for the last couple of years, and now starting to put the wheels in motion. And we're really excited about it, and hope to get started on it, as soon as possible. We both come from larger families. Most of our family is not in Florida, so like it'd be really nice to have like a home base where, when everyone comes from out of town, they can stay with us. My parents live up north, my wife's parents the same way. My son's got a lot of cousins that are from up north and as well. So like, you know, when people come, they have to stay at hotels or, you know, find other means. And it's like, wow, you know, if we get this place, it's, you know, everyone, it's a nice home base for our whole family, you know. So we love the area and we're just, you know, we're really excited with this project and hope to be moving along with it soon. So appreciate your time and consideration and just wanted to introduce ourselves. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Veal, a planner with Historic Preservation. When we get a request for new construction, we go to the Hyde Park Design Guidelines, and I want to share a little bit of the guidelines with you. On page 61, Design of Compatible New Construction. It says, major development in Hyde Park extended from the late 1880s to the 1920s. The period of significance that we look at is 1886 to 1933. Just as Hyde Park included a diverse set of architectural styles reflecting evolving architecture thoughts at each of these 4 decades, architecture as an art continues to evolve. Creative solutions reflecting current architectural design theories and practices are encouraged in the design and new construction within the Hyde Park Historic District. Continuing, it talks about, while these guidelines set general criteria for compatible new constructions, exceptions to these criteria are made by the Architecture Review Commission when necessary to acknowledge and encourage creative design solutions that are sensitive to the district. Continuing, it talks about these design guidelines do not dictate style, but they set up criteria under which the design can be accurately compared to the setting within the Hyde Park Historic District. New construction is encouraged to be unique in design while reflecting the basic scale, materials, and quality found in the early buildings in Hyde Park. So using that reference is how we guide the people to come forward. This project had many different variations. He addressed all of my conditions that are attached to the staff report. Having said that, I don't have too much to share with you, but staff found that this is consistent for preliminary approval. Usually they come forward for final approval. This project has many different variations to it. Staff felt that it could go forward to preliminary approval. Ultimately, it's up to the board. You could either continue it, approve it, a preliminary with conditions, give a final approval, or deny the request. Those are the options that you have in front of you. I believe that additional conversations should take place tonight. I think with the wall sections are very important, and for him to go through the wall sections again. And I think the success of this building are the windows. There are appropriate windows. We've worked with this style in the past. I think a true metal window could be a reference to be approved as part of the overall architecture with this style house. They did state that on the record is a cladded window, but I think from the top, from the ridge to the foundation to go through the wall sections, part of our request was for him to have multiple wall sections. He provided one, I think additional wall sections to understand the complexity of this request is needed. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone in the public who is here to speak for or against this project? Okay, seeing no one, we will begin with questions from the commissioners, and I'm going to start on my left.
The one question on the front porch, it looked like there were railings beside as you walk up to the front door. What are those railings gonna be? What material?
More likely, they're gonna be some kind of a metal, just for durability. Prefabricated metal railings.
Okay, and the windows, they're gonna be, I think, I'm just making sure I heard you correct, that they're supposed to be black in color?
More likely, that's what we're gonna have. The colors are still to be determined, but more likely black. Or at least a darker tone.
Okay. And the porches up top that have the swinging windows, you did that to mimic, I think you said a sleeping porch?
That's correct, yeah.
Were there any other designs proposed for those porches to be open or was it always contemplated to be able to be closed?
No, there was prior renditions when it was just gonna be like a fixed window there. And then Ron brought up the good point of a sleeping porch,
Okay,
which is a feature in the neighborhood.
okay. No more questions right now.
Do you have some pictures of the neighborhood again with the retaining wall and the design of the retaining wall is in the neighboring structures?
Here's the property across.
Okay.
Here's the property to the east.
Okay.
And this one's not a good, doesn't highlight that very well. Here's another shot of the same property.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
I'm concerned about I'm going to call it a water table, that you have a stucco, you know, a protruding element that stops the stack bond and allows it to transition to a stucco above. And it doesn't seem to be consistent.
Could you put the rendering back
Yeah,
up, please?
okay. This one's got better lighting there.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I always believe that there has to be some sort of like consistency. Like if you start a horizontal line going, you have to sort of continue it. And then and you're not consistent, it seems to me, in the thought about the stack bond. And the stack bond itself is a choice. I think it's probably just fine. But, for instance, we're looking here on the right, that projecting element has what appear to be sort of, it's strengthened at its edges with the stack bond. And then between the windows that, the brick disappears. And then you have that horizontal, that the division between stucco and brick does not continue across at the recessed area of this of the building, but that's set back. It's just hard to interpret quickly. Sort of those divisions between the brick and the stucco, and then you have shown us the windows as though there is no access to those sleeping porches or those sleeping porch-like elements, but I'm assuming that there is, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It'll be access on the second floor.
Okay.
And whether those stay true porches is still to be determined. It may be a bedroom up there, it may be a loft. But either way, it's gonna be covered and it's gonna have casement windows that open up to the exterior.
Okay, and what is the dimension of the front door?
Dimension of the front?
Yeah, the front door.
Oh, the front door is a 36 inch wide.
Okay.
With about 12-inch side lights.
It seems a little weak in this, it seems a little narrow. And you also have to think about getting things in and out. Perhaps a wider door, certainly not a double door, but a wider door,
We can do that.
like a 42-inch door. It changes, you always have to look at these things. And now I'm going to defer to my other commission members.
Could you pull up a view of the stair element on the exterior?
Yes. Over here on the left side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just this view or, and the perspective, but it appears as if the brick that is on either side of that window that goes down to the ground is not equal. Is that true, or is it?
From this view, I can see where you can see that it's uneven on the right side of the window.
Yeah,
Is
it looks,
that where you-
it looks wider on the left side than it is on the right side. Is
Tho-
it-
Those are things that would definitely be fixed. So what we done is with the first floor, we kind of developed it to a certain point, and then we went ahead and started jumping on the 3D model. So the second floor, it still needs to be developed, and those are the things that I would double check, make sure windows are centered within the room, and so forth.
Okay. I think that's my only question.
Could you put the site plan back up?
Yes.
And of my particular concern, and slide it down so that we can see all the porch lines and wall lines of the adjacent properties. So you have to zoom out and then slide it up a little bit so I can see them all. Yeah, I mean, that indicates to me right now that the porch lines of the adjacent properties are all the way back where your front setback line is, but the actual house walls on the adjacent properties, 906, 908, and 910, are a good 10 feet further back. Am I reading that correctly?
This one is pretty much the only one that has like a front porch,
Okay,
which is right in line with the front setback.
right.
And then the exterior wall starts a couple feet back. And then
Well, that's at least 10 feet in this scale, right? It's not a couple feet.
Yeah, and then 908 South Fremont has a very small porch, but really, it's a porch, oh, I'll show it, I have a picture of it.
And you know what I'm getting at, right? I mean, is what we're
Yes.
supposed to do. It's a porch. Yeah, okay, it's a
So
porch.
this is 908 South Fremont, it's a small porch, but then it also has this enclosed sunroom, I would suppose. So that's where I indicated that first wall line. And then the second wall line is this one right here, that's further back.
Right.
And then South Fremont.
Which
does
is the
not-
main, at 908, that wall, that back wall line is the main volume of the house, is
That's
the actual
correct. And then
volume
this
of the
is some
house.
sort of a sunroom.
That's just a little projection, a small projection on the front and a
Yeah, it was bigger than
porch.
the front porch, but yeah, it's a sunroom.
Okay.
And then 910 does not have a porch at all. It just has two
Okay.
wall lines.
And I guess what I'm getting at is that, you know, to maintain the historic setbacks and to be compatible with historic neighborhoods, what we generally look at is an average of the porch and wall setbacks. And find that average, and then that's your line. But it seems this house that you're proposing, the design of the house that you're proposing, everything is in front of the average. Everything's much closer to the property line than the average of the adjacent houses. And so I have a concern about that from a design standpoint.
If I can interject real quick. This is a RS50 zoning classification, so the front yard setback has to be at 20. If it's proud of 20, there's language in the code that states that in historic districts, you could look at the averaging along the block and be at that average. But if it's proud of the average, he has to come for a variance. So he either has to line it up or ask for a variance. Through this exercise that we're doing, no variance was sought. So we're under the interpretation that he's going to be in the averaging of the historic structures along that block.
Right, but the graphics don't show that.
I understand, but
Okay.
if he doesn't meet that criteria,
That's why
he has
we're
to come for a variance. So that's a good eye that you have, but that staunch line of the averaging will have to be met.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm just I'm probing the design. Obviously, the design is very preliminary. It's very preliminary. I mean, you may have gone through multiple iterations of it, but if you don't even have a second floor plan, the design isn't really, it's not a final design. One thing that we are definitely missing is, and we do expect at this level of hearing, is, you know, a full series of wall sections, in actual construction wall sections, showing materials, you know, construction methodologies, structure, window framing, you know, all that kind of stuff is typically what we see at all of these, at our hearings to be presented to us at 3/4 inch scale and all that kind of thing. What kind of windows are you proposing? When you brought up the materials on your phone, you brought up what looked like single hung or double hung windows. But the rendering doesn't show double hung or single hung windows, and what are we basing it on?
The finish, the black finish.
No, the kind of window. Is it a casement window, is it a stationary
We'll have
window, is it a double hung
casements.
window, what is it?
We'll have casements, fixed windows, single hung windows for egress, of course.
Okay, but all of the windows shown are all the same, and they all look like picture windows in the renderings. So we have no idea
To
what
me,
kind
it
of,
was just to represent that the type of finish, and that we're gonna shoot for a thin profile framing, so not thick and sturdy like you would see in a builder grade window. That was the intent.
right, but again, I guess what I'm getting at is that the types of windows that are going to be put into the building are not shown in your presentation.
Not each
Correct.
particular type.
Right,
no.
okay, I just want to get to that, okay.
Correct.
I guess on your site plan again here, you have an X through a 45-inch oak. If you zoom into towards the rear of the yard, when we were looking at the site plan, there is a 45-inch oak just near the breezeway there, where your 7-foot breezeway is connecting the house to the existing accessory structure. There's a 45-inch oak there,
Right.
just X'd out. How does that happen? How do you get rid of a 45-inch oak?
We met with Ron during the first site meeting, and it was basically said that we could remove that tree. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ron?
After Natural Resources looked at it, it scales out as a tree that can be removed. It's a damaged tree. I don't know what the numbers, a C9, or I don't know what it actually came out to be.
You're saying it can be removed or
Can.
cannot?
It can
It
be
can.
removed, yeah.
Okay,
And then there's mitigation for that.
okay. Let's see. Have you averaged the porch heights of the adjacent properties also, and what is your porch height from grade?
We are proposing 48 inches above grade, but we are flexible on that. By the time you add the 2 feet retaining wall, we'll be well above the required finished floor elevation, and this property is not in the flood zone. So we can be flexible with the 48 inches.
Well, again, what we're looking at is compatibility with the neighborhood. There's a consistency in Hyde Park of the porches being, 3 risers or 4 risers above the retaining wall height to get to the front porch. The other thing about, we'll get into a style in a second. Where did you, what established the stacked brick design? Where did the stacked brick come from? Because that's not typically a prairie style
I went
detail.
back to some prairie home styles, and that's kind of what I saw, and some of
Okay.
the inspiration. And then also the fact that it's a stack makes it more contemporary.
Okay. And I'm not here to criticize their style, because I fully agree that in historic districts, if you're building new, you should build new. You should build a new design, modern design. You shouldn't try to copy, historic. But in a prairie style, I guess I'm looking at the porch windows on the second floor. Would you agree that those are kind of reminiscent of a prairie style window, which is kind of like a squat, horizontally divided window, whereas the tall, thin, skinny vertical windows are less representative of a prairie style?
So what I've noticed in looking at inspiration is the first floor has the taller windows, and then as you move to the second floor, those windows drop down
They
in size.
they get very squat. What is your
There
floor to
was
floors?
a rendition where I had these windows in particular be wider, but then a comment was made that to closer match what's going on in historic, they should be reduced in width. So that's one of the new renditions that happened here on this body.
On the second floor?
No, these two windows right here. Used to be wider in nature.
I can't see what you're pointing at.
Oh,
What are you pointing at?
my mistake. These two windows right here.
You had them wider?
I had them wider at some point too, yes. And then a comment was made to go ahead and reduce the width of them
Okay.
to match some of the windows in the area.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're going with a prairie style, the matching of windows in the area is less important than matching the prairie style window. But, okay, what else did I have? I guess my only other question would be, this seems very, very high up compared to the adjacent houses that were shown in your presentation. Even the retaining wall seems taller than the existing retaining wall. And is this your minimum flood height that you have to meet
For the retaining wall?
for the first floor slab level or
No,
first
no.
floor level?
We can reduce it down as needed.
Okay. It just seems, this seems very vertical, very tall for prairie style. Prairie style is horizontal, low, the overhangs, create a horizontal band that lower the house. This just seems to be much taller than what I would think of as prairie style. I guess those are the only questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Quick question.
Yes.
What's the genesis of the contemporary prairie style?
The clients, what they typically do is bring me some inspiration photos, and then I do my best to narrow it down to what would be a style that would be closest to what they're looking for.
Okay,
So contemporary is, prairie styles tends to be the most contemporary of all the styles in the neighborhood that are quote-unquote established. So that's why I'm trying to make a blend of them both. Use
Alright.
some elements of prairie house, don't be completely 100% prairie, but introduce some of its
so it
elements.
wasn't, I want a prairie style house, is I prefer contemporary versus traditional, and you kind of landed on prairie because your interpretation is that is the most contemporary of the styles? Is that-
Absolutely.
Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it, kind of like what you mentioned, it's hard when you're building a new home and you're trying to blend it in with the historic
Sure.
nature. So we kind of wanted, we were open, and we still are, and we were kind of like trying to figure out what's the best way to tie it all in, and add to the look of the neighborhood, but, add a new home to a, historic district, so,
Sure.
yeah.
And again, there's not a right or wrong style.
Okay.
So let's get back to some questions. You're coming here for preliminary approval, so we don't want to get bogged down in details. But we want to talk about enough of this so that when you come back, it's complete. And right now, I will tell you, it's difficult for us to give you really good feedback. For example, this rendering is a little tilted, and your elevations are straight on, and there's things I'm seeing in the elevation that maybe show up here, maybe don't. Also, this elevation, you see the handrail on the right side of the door goes into a window, right? I get it, you're rushing to get things done. The problem is, you're gonna have to shift that window to the right, which then is gonna affect the window up top, and it's gonna start throwing things off. So it's gonna make us hesitant to agree to something, because right off the bat, we know things are going to change. So make sure you get all this stuff right when we come in. All right, so let's get back to massing and compatibility with the neighborhood, because that's really what this hearing is gonna be about, a preliminary approval. Let's go to finished floor. You said you're shooting for 48-inch finished floor. I believe I guess it would be your south elevation. It looks like that doorway is higher than this elevation. And just looking at these risers, it doesn't really seem to math out to 48. So I'm thrown off. So, no, it would be the opposite elevation of this. I don't know if you have a rendering of that. If not, put the elevation up.
This one?
South, so the backyard.
There's no rendering in the back.
Put the elevation.
There's an elevation, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So how many risers is that?
So this matches,
That does match?
yeah, this one
Okay,
comes across.
all right, good. All right, so 48 inches. How did you come up with 48 inches?
Really, it was, I just wanted to make sure I had a grand staircase. So I like when I design homes to be elevated off the ground. That way they don't feel like you're just going up one or two steps.
Okay,
Typically what you'll see in a typical rent style home in South Tampa. So I want to kind of give it more sophistication by elevating it.
would you be open to lower than that?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on from there. This rendering right here, staff came to us and said the accessory structure is not part of this. This is just pure rendering. I know you're gonna complement colors, but that's wood. Is that little projection above the garage door there now?
Yes.
Okay, so there's nothing changing on that? The windows aren't changing? Because it looks very complimentary of this. And I just want to make sure that's really the case.
Yeah, no, it's got windows in it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all existing.
Okay. All right, your stem wall, right now you're showing it 2 feet. Your section shows it as a raised curb, doesn't show any grade behind it. Your renderings show it with grade behind it. Be consistent with that, okay? The stem wall, I'm assuming, and this is a question, I'm assuming is set at that height because you've set 4 feet. Because all the pictures you showed us of neighboring stem walls aren't 2 feet. They appear to be maybe 15 inches or lower. So you would be open to lowering the stem wall height?
Yes.
If the, okay. All right. So if you would go back to the other rendering elevation, I guess it would be the west side. Commissioner Prokop talked about the averaging. And that is spot on. And one of the big concerns, the applicant stated, hey, we're trying to build a house with parameters because we have a lot of visiting family. I get it. But the challenge is gonna be, is to make this fit in and not make it a big block. And you're starting there, but there are some, we need to keep working at it. Because I think as you're pushing and pulling it, you're starting to get less consistent with a style. I think you're starting to focus on creating that interest, if you will, but you're losing some of the dynamics. So I guess my question would be, is there a rationale for the size of that entry compared to some of the sizes of the other elements that you have on this front?
Yes, Ron may mention that we need to make sure that the west-facing entry needs to be more pronounced than the north-facing entry.
Okay, because you're gonna have that as the front. Okay.
Yeah.
You've already said that that actually may not be a sleeping porch, that may be an air-conditioned space next time we see you?
That might be a possibility, yes.
Okay. So that's a little different. Okay. All right. All right, moving down here. Give me a second. You showed the HVAC. Is there gonna be a generator?
No, no.
Okay. And what's the rationale for not putting fencing in to screen?
I don't know.
Just undecided
We
at the
just,
moment?
yeah, we're just
Okay,
undecided on that.
so that you
Yeah.
might end up coming back with fencing, but just right now you
Yeah,
haven't got
after
to
the
that.
fact.
I got
Yeah.
it, okay. All right. We talked about construction sections. Okay, can I see the north side one more time, please? Okay. Okay, I have have some comments, but no more questions. All right. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay.
Well, do you have any floor-to-floor heights on this set
We're going with 10-foot ceiling heights for both floors.
for both floors?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that just brought up another question. Your roof heights, you mentioned that your pitch you played with in one of your variations. Are you set on this, or are you still open to
Also,
that?
we're flexible on that as well.
Okay, and what is your overall height right now?
That is about 28 feet,
28?
28 feet, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
What is the square footage of the proposed home?
Well, the first floor right now is, we have it at 3,978, the first floor. The second floor will be recessed, so it'll have to be smaller.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And that includes both porches with the square
Gotcha.
footage.
Okay.
One other question, I think it was brought up. That you've exceeded the pervious with this footprint, pervious allowable, or impervious allowable. And that some underground, retention would be needed. But given the amount of site coverage, where would that underground retention even be able to be
That's
placed?
definitely for the civil engineer to address, but in one of my projects, he has been able to locate the underwater, located near the front. He's done that underground. Or he's able to do a trench around the perimeter. I've seen both of those methods be used.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's the end of questions. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal, if you so choose.
Yeah, I mean, I think several comments were made. We are still at a stage where we are flexible. We can make adjustments, as you alluded to, the slab elevation, the height of the retaining wall. These in particular, yes, I do agree. It's not necessarily prairie home. Prairie home style is bigger massing on the first floor, and then everything kind of recesses on the second floor. The reason for this pull-out, again, is to prevent that kind of look of a builder home where it's all kind of flat, very boxy. So I felt that we needed some sort of a protrusion on this right side of the house, and then it kind of matches the other side of the house where we have two protrusions as well. The size of the porch is something we can be very flexible on. We can reduce the size of that porch as needed as well. I'll definitely have to, if these are the only 3 properties we have to the south and only one of them has a porch, we'll have to see if I could get more data line points to see where the average is. But I do believe our wall, our front exterior wall, it is kind of roughly already in the average. Again, with the exception of this volume right here, which is the reason I protruded. There was a reason behind it. It wasn't just to make the house bigger. And then the front porch, that is something we can pull it back. So we are still flexible with that in mind.
And I do believe when we went out with Ron a few times, he showed us the setbacks to the neighboring properties and where ours would be. And I don't believe our porch would overhang that much over. I think it was, when we discussed, it was pretty fairly in line with the neighboring properties. Also with the height of the home, the home across the street, I believe we would be shorter than this home. And 2 doors down on Fremont as well, that's a 2-story with kind of a mock 3rd story. I believe we would be in line with that one as well. So I don't think we'd really be taller than any of the other 2-story homes.
He's referring to this one right here.
That's the second one I was referring to, yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. That would do it.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you very much. All right, at this point, we're going to close the public hearing, and we will open the floor for discussion.
So I have a general question. What is it that we're deciding today with the preliminary?
Whatever you want.
Dana Crosby Collier, just to remind you, when you do decide if you're going to do the preliminary, to set the future public hearing date in the motion.
Gotcha. Ron? Would you like to address that
What you're here for today?
from a preliminary standpoint?
We felt that it still had to be designed a little bit more thoroughly for final approval. There were some items that were still left open. So moving forward, they had a number of items that were concrete, and then there were some that were flexible. Through their presentation tonight, the body of the board should look and see if it's ready for some kind of approval, preliminary approval with conditions. You could give them a laundry list of conditions. If the direction you're gonna go, then that's what's open in the next public hearing. If you feel that it's just more information than that is required than preliminary approval, you feel comfortable approving, then you could continue it with direction as well.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So are we approving the actual style today? And with these protrusions and the brick and all that?
Usually preliminary approval, we look at the site plan, the scale and the massing of the structure, and then the articulation on the building could come forward at a later date. So if there's some kind of consensus amongst the board that the general bones of the building are in line with it, then maybe preliminary approval. If you still feel that it's outside of that realm, then do a continuation. But once again, ask the owner how they want to proceed. If a continuation is acceptable, if a preliminary is acceptable, or they want to up or down vote.
And for a point of clarification, if we approve with preliminary with conditions, when they come back, we can still address everything or only conditions?
When they come back, you'll address the conditions that you asked them to address in your preliminary. If you continue it with suggestions, then you have more flexibility when they come back.
Thank
But
you
in
very
either
much.
case, be sure to set the future hearing date.
Got it. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, so I guess my general thought is that there seemed to be, not being the architect on the board, but there seemed to be a lot of missing elements that were being asked about, the wall sections and seeing the wall sections and the retaining walls. They noted theirs were gonna be rounded, the pictures of the other were flat. The scale seemed large for maybe in comparison to the house next door. The house across the street seems very large. It seems to be broken up by these open porches. On the second floor, there seem to be two open porches, one above the front door and one kind of set back. And hearing that they may actually close their sleeping porches to actually be rooms. Does that change, the feel of it? It just seemed that there was a lot that just still needed to be answered. Is it within the setback of the neighboring house, or is it much closer to the road, so it's really gonna look out of place compared to the house next door? I think maybe continuing it with some suggestions from the architects as to these elements might be helpful, because it just seemed that there was a lot that still needed to be addressed, and from the builder also to give suggestions.
Yeah, I think that the spirit, I like the spirit of the architecture, all right? Taking a contemporary style and then using the essence of Prairie to help establish a language. It doesn't have to be detailed like a Prairie style, of course. I mean, but I like that kind of design direction, that you kind of overlay that on top of a contemporary design. So the massing of that element, that taller element, doesn't have to repeat a Prairie style. It doesn't have to follow all the rules. It's just got, I like that form. I like the proportions of that in general of that element, and I appreciate that the designer did that. But I guess I just wanted to start with that and just say that I like the spirit of it. and that they've latched on to a style to help guide them.
There's a really good Prairie Right example in Hyde Park.
Right around the
That's
corner.
just-
Yes.
It's superb.
Yes.
It really is an excellent example. It does all the right things and has all the right moves and all that kind of stuff. This is a really tall prairie.
Well,
It's
but then,
really-
but don't
it does-
don't
no.
get hung up on prairie though.
No,
That's where I'm saying is don't call it call it whatever you want. Don't call it prairie then. Call it something
Contemporary
else.
with an
But
essence of prairie.
yeah,
But to
just
me,
a hint.
yeah, I agree that a couple of the elements
Yeah.
are nicely proportioned, and a couple of the elements are just like way,
Well, yeah.
you know, the mass and
Yeah.
the overhang compared to the vertical portion of wall that the overhang is covering. The reason you had deep overhangs is because you would create shadow on the windows in a prairie style. These overhangs, even at 3 feet, are not going to throw shadow on a 7-foot tall window and a 10-foot floor to floor.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of the compression of the prairie house is you know, you'd have a 6-foot tall entry in a prairie house. Literally, the entry would be 6 foot tall.
Right.
But we're having discussions.
No, right. And what I would like to get to is, I think fundamentally, not even having the site plan is gonna hold me back, because it's gonna fundamentally change the building.
Right.
So they've gotta do some more work on that to prove the averaging.
Right.
And
It's
then
got to
to
be
your-
more precise.
Well, yeah, but then to your point, what I would like to do is make sure they have direction. And you're making some great comments about massing, so I would like the conversation, if we could, to steer more towards the massing and some of the hangups that
Yeah.
we're gonna wanna have fixed. The wall elevations, they're gonna have to come back with wall
No, I
elevations.
understand.
So
Wall
that's-
sections
yeah.
and, you know, how the water
Wall sections,
table
right.
interacts with the brick and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that I think we, as in our fields, kind of get, and then, we're not talking about absolute heights. Or even breaking up, you know, the volume of a facade. Because the house, that yellow house across the street, that doesn't seem big, because it's got so many disparate parts and so many volumes and so many different setbacks and so many different recesses and open porches, you know, rather than roof porches and all that kind of stuff. So even though it might be taller than this house, it's so much more articulated that it doesn't seem that way. The 2-story house that had the little porch, the gray one next to it, it was just a very flat, almost salt box gable, you know, house. I doubt that's a contributing structure.
Right.
Given the detailing of it and the volume of it and all that kind of thing, but I don't know for certain. But the windows were completely flush with the exterior face of the house and all that kind of stuff. And so much more of the roof pitch. You know, if the roof pitches were lower, prairie style roof pitches were a little bit lower, the gable or the hips were of a lower slope.
And I think we all kind of have consensus of physically lowering the finished floor elevation.
Right, and possibly floor to floor. I understand a 10-foot floor to floor is really desirable, but the second floor at 10 feet is getting a little bit too much volume for Hyde Park in general and adjacent houses in general.
Even if you drop it down, even if you drop down the house?
Yeah, just from I guess from a, and it's hard to describe without discussing quote-unquote style or whatever, but it's, the second floor feels way too tall for the style being invoked as a described style. And I understand it doesn't have to be a style, it doesn't have to fit a style precisely or perfectly, but the second floor seems really, really, really high up in the air and really, really, really tall compared to what prairie style, you know, is about.
Well, if we were to ask them to come back and putting aside the word prairie, what would we be asking them to do? Come back with an elevation that shows it a little lower, right? Don't go up as many, my layman's term, as high, as many steps. Show us that your setback compared to the neighbor is not so intrusive towards the street that your neighbor is gonna look so inferior to your home, right? We want it to look, as you're going down the street, that you're in
Which-
line with your neighbor
Yeah.
and not gonna make their house look so much more inferior, you know, in scale to your house. What else would we ask them to be coming back to show?
Without designing it for them, your compatibility with the neighborhood, size and scale.
Size and scale.
And mass, and then you have to be consistent with the essence of whatever your design style
The
is.
details.
Details and massing, and make sure you don't have part of the house is this and part of the house doesn't seem to jive with that.
Well, if we reduce, if they were to reduce or increase the front setback, that may take care of our underground retention issue as well, because they may get a lower percentage and get underneath 50%.
I'm less worried about that, because that's gonna be a requirement, a technical requirement that they're gonna have to, and there's ways to do it. It's more about that size and mass is not there right now. And it's, again, the frontage is not right, so we gotta get that right. And when they come back, they have to have this worked out, because it can't be hey, we're willing to change a bunch of stuff. That just means you haven't, you gotta get it to a point where you like it, and we're real close, and then we can make some.
Make some still further adjustments
Right.
Well,
as
yeah,
far
I
as getting a full, final approval with
That's
conditions
right.
at that stage.
And that's what staff will help them
Sure.
do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would, I'm almost contradicting myself, but I would like to see, perhaps some examples of, some prairie detailing, if they're taking cues from prairie, maybe there's some inspiration shots that kind of help them get along, and that might be helpful in the next round.
There's also, you're almost like looking for, trying to think of what the term is for a board, a wish board or
Yeah, image board.
Inspiration board.
image board, something, huh?
Yeah.
Inspiration.
There we go.
Inspiration board, something else like that, but, yeah, I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot of mass involved. There's a lot, it's not just pure height. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's not just the pure height to the peak of the roof. It's the mass and the scale compared to other adjacent houses. The porch of the gray house is a porch, even though there's a little, it's just part of it's glass enclosed on the side of it. I think it was obscured by the trees, but it's a porch with a little glass enclosed sunroom. So that's a porch. The main portion of the house, the volume of the wall, quote unquote wall, is beyond that. And you have to use those real averages. I think there's just a lot of work to do to.
Cutting to the chase, I'm not hearing that there's a lean towards the preliminary approval.
No.
Okay. Ron, is there any appetite for continuance?
So that's something you're gonna have to ask the owner and the agent about, but we're looking, I just spoke with him, and if we're looking for the next public hearing to either continue or give him preliminary approval, it's May 5th, 2025.
Okay.
Having said that they have to turn around these drawings and have them uploaded for our review by April 16th, which is a tight window.
Yeah.
The,
So what is
the
the next
architect stated that he thinks he could do it, and working towards the completion per the discussion this evening. For some reason, if he can't meet that deadline, then he could ask for a continuation to the next public hearing cycle.
Okay. So, the applicant? Is there an appetite for a continuance?
Yeah, I think we can do the May 5th, and I think we'll be good for that.
Okay, and my question is, as opposed to wanting us to vote one way, up or down on it, which has some timing ramifications.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
we can,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I still think we need some overall direction, because yes, there's Prairie Home, and then there's contemporary, you know, we want 10-foot ceilings, it goes against Prairie Homes, so we could have more direction as a board.
So here's the problem with that, is we are not tasked with designing. We're trying to give you, and this is always the tough part, we're trying to give you some direction, but I would highly recommend, Ron knows commissioner speak.
Okay.
And I would tell you to lean on Ron to interpret what we're saying. And I don't really, because we're not gonna give you an absolute, and we can't give you an absolute. So we're trying to give you that direction, but I would lean on staff to interpret it a little bit.
There was a comment made about having like a second floor, so how detailed do we really need to get at this beginning stage?
My recommendation is you need to address the things that you've heard,
Yes.
but you need to do your own thought on the second floor, because if you haven't figured out your parameters on the second floor of what can work, it's gonna be hard for you to defend the design and why you got to where you are. It's a suggestion, but if it's
Yeah.
too amorphous, we're gonna read into that.
Yeah, there was a second floor, that's definitely, we've gone through a second floor, it was just not something that was presented. I don't think we
We're not
needed
worried
to.
about where the bathrooms are in the second floor.
Yeah,
We're not worried
exactly.
about any of that, but that is going to lead in some regard, it's gonna have an impact to what's on the outside, so.
It has already.
Exactly, so, again, we're more interested in massing and proportion and detailing on the outside. We're 100% worried about that. But if you've noticed some of these other conversations, there's a function that drives some of this, and you need to be able to defend it and say, this is why we're doing it, and this is an impact. So,
Well, one of the other things I think that does discuss or that ties into compatibility with adjacent properties, adjacent neighborhoods, is site coverage. Is, that is part of being compatible with the neighbors, is how much of the site you actually cover with the house. So that requires some study of the adjacent properties and the site plans and the tax records and all that kind of stuff. And there's an interplay between how much mass your neighbor has on his property versus what you have on your property. And that's another factor that I consider.
yeah.
Can I add to that at all, or no? Probably not.
Really, the question was about the continuance, so, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So, with that, further discussion, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue.
Oh, I gotta say it all?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, let me interrupt for a second.
Before we're making a motion to continue, have we been explicit enough at this point? And that's my question, is there anything else that we should tell them? To allow, just like, this is why we're, I feel one thing that has come up, and I wanna just emphasize this a little bit more, is that the windows, not having defined what kind of window it is, kind of leaves you open for, it's much easier to develop an elevation when you understand what's going on with those windows. And it provides you with the kind of variety. This, it looks like, it's like a really bare bones kind of elevation. And once you know what those windows are, it helps. There's a, you get a certain level of detail out of that. And there are other things too that I think, I would also mention that if you can like if you could think maybe this is more a Mediterranean revival, if you need a word to put on it, because it has a hip, it's like, it's a hip, it's stucco, maybe it's, but then it's got the brick, I don't know. And naming things is not as important as having a certain balance and continuity that is indicative of the quality of the other structures in the historic district. So now unless somebody else needs to say something, I guess.
Make a motion to continue, move to grant the continuation in case ARC-25-00000155 for the property located at 1806 West Bristol Avenue to the May 5th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30 PM.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, I have a second. Now we have an opportunity for a little bit more discussion if we feel like it needs. Looking.
The word that comes to mind is just more refinement, without being too specific. More refinement, more detail, more attention to massing, more attention to the adjacent properties and compatibility with them, porch height, volume, everything.
And maybe just look around, I think, like you mentioned, 2 or 3 blocks up is a prairie style reimagined, so.
Oh, it's a legit prairie style.
Yeah.
It was built.
So,
Yeah.
just to help.
Yeah.
But I think we're ready.
Okay. All right, so we have a second. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Good luck.
There's a new structure. This is Rome, and it goes into Hyde Park.
Commissioners, good evening. Ron Vila, planner with Historic Preservation. Our last agenda item is ARC-25-00001111. This is for the address of 912 West Platte Street. This is also in the Hyde Park Historic District. The structure that's associated with that parcel is non-contributing, dates back to 2006. The underlying zoning was a PD. There was multiple structures built at once. The use is commercial, and the request is for a certificate of appropriateness modification to the roof, which was a tile roof, and they put a standing seam roof on it. Just to bring to everybody's attention, the roof was replaced without approval through our office or through permitting. Now, having said that, they should not be penalized coming forward. This review this evening should be if the replacement roof is compatible with the architectural style of the structure that's there now. And we have some criteria in our guidelines to assist you. So this is the Sanborn map from the 1929 version, showing the location. The area in red is the Hyde Park Local Historic District, as indicated on our vicinity map here. It does show it's non-contributing. It's on the northern property line. The area that this encompasses, from DeLeon to the north and to the east to Boulevard, was expanded. This was part of the expansion area in 2023. To focus on the roof, part of the PD site was here, here, and here. You see the roof that was there. This is from Google Earth. This is today, showing the property in question with the roof that was replaced to what's currently there. Just to walk you around to the non-contributing structure that has the standing seam. To look at some of the surrounding properties that also have that Mediterranean style, that have a barrel tile. This is to the south. This is to the east. And just looking directly across the street, I didn't want to leave out that there are standing seam roofs within the vicinity. The Hyde Park Historic District runs down the center line of Platte. These are outside of the district, but they are within the vicinity, so I just didn't want to leave that out as part of the reference. I'd like for the board just to focus on the roof. We're only here for the roof replacement. So at this time, I'll hand it over, and then I'll address the board again.
Good evening. My name is Mark Weaver. I'm Vice President of Ed Taylor Construction, and we're the general contractor that was hired by the Bailey Family Foundation primarily to do an interior build-out on this building. It was when we walked up on the roof with the owner of the foundation that we realized that the roof was not in good shape. And this project originally started by just pulling a permit and replacing the flat roof, which was dried in and just about complete and ready to call for final inspections when the hurricanes hit. The hurricane, I don't know which one, to be honest with you, but did some pretty substantial damage to the barrel tile roof. I don't know if I can. Pointer here. This area right through here, through here. You can't see it in the back. Upon inspecting the roof after the hurricanes, the owner asked if we could give him a price for a standing seam roof, which we did. Ramcon is the roofer that did the flat roof, and that is a roofer that I've worked with personally in this area for 30 years. They hired, or I should say, they went out and got a different roofer that they subbed this standing seam to. And the confusion is that each roofer thought that they pulled the permit. So we called for a final inspection on the flat roof, and at that point, they realized that no one had called for or had submitted for a permit on the standing seam. We submitted for a permit, and that's when Ron's group said, no, you're in trouble. So we got a stop work order, and this is where we are today. Got some other pictures here I can show you. That shows a little bit of the tiles on the roof after the storm. More of the same. More of the same. I do have oops, sorry. Flip that around like that. So this is the Bailey Family Foundation building, 912 Platt. Right here is a very similar style building with, it's a elevated it's a two-story building with office space on the second floor and parking underneath. And they have a standing seam roof, so it's right literally around the corner on Boulevard. That's what it looks like. So we're here basically to find out what we have to do to make this right. We want to make it right. Nobody here tried to deceive anybody. We just absolutely, it was a human error, lack of communication. We're guilty. We're here. And that's where we are. We've got samples of the roof that we put on. Would you like to see that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
think so.
all right. You guys have anything to add? Josh? Anything? You good? Okay. That's where we are.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very much.
okay.
Good evening, Commissioner Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this request exceeds the administrative authority that we have to review this. The proposed material is inappropriate to the architectural style with the plans that we looked at in January 7, 2025. Therefore, the commission is required to make the determination of appropriateness of the proposed modification based upon the applicant's presentation this evening. Going to the Hyde Park Design Guidelines at page 53, roof is a big player in the compatibility of the overall skin of the building and the success of the structure. Each of these elements is talking about the roof, is important in defining the character of the structure and its surroundings. Every effort should be made to retain the features or repair them. Where repair is not practical, they should be replaced with compatible materials and details. Clay barrel tile is often used on Mediterranean-style buildings as well as other buildings within the district. We go to page 55 of the guidelines. It talks about what's permissible and not permissible. Where it's permissible is to maintain the original roof materials, repair or replace roofing materials as close to the original as possible in size, shape, color, and texture. What's not permissible is to replace the roofing material, which is not character to the style of the building. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anybody in the public here to speak for or against this project? Okay, not seeing anyone, we will go to commissioners for questions, starting on my right.
That's me again. Okay, could you come back up?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
When the owner asked you to replace the roof, was, and I'm the Ramcon, was your roofer, why wouldn't your roofer have recommended, or did your roofer recommend repairing the clay tile? In as much as only maybe, I guess, that we could see from the photographs, maybe 5% was damaged, and, 95% of a clay tile roof was still there.
Well, again, the flat roof was the initial project, and it was only after the storm that the owner decided. The owner wanted to do the standing seam roof because he didn't want to have to go through repairs again. He'd already repaired it another time. I'm sorry, ask the question again.
The question was, if 95% of the clay tile roof was intact, why wasn't the clay tile roof repaired? Or why wasn't it recommended to be repaired rather than completely torn off and replaced with a completely different roof at a much higher cost?
Well, I can tell you that, I don't know that it's 95%. I mean, we're not going to split hairs about 5%.
90%.
I'm not trying. But the fact that it was breached and there was damage under the roof, it was more of a project than just 5% of the roof to repair it. And, you guys can speak to that. I mean, we'll come up and talk.
Representing the Bailey Family Foundation, I'm Josh. Essentially, when I observed what happened during the hurricane, the reason that the roofer was quite in a state of disarray was probably because he had, 900 other roofs to do as well. The liability aspect, we have a very large structure. It, probably towers over the majority of the residential structures that you see. Our commercial structure, it presents much more boldly to a regular residents. That tile leaving and ending up in our parking lot and adjacent streets and other things was a liability on our end, and we thought that the higher wind load of a standing seam metal roof would lend better to our overall insurance and liability purposes for, instead of going back with a barrel tile.
Okay, so did you have any kind of a barrel tile warranty or wind speed rating on the barrel tile and its installation from the original installer?
The building was built over 20 years ago,
Okay,
so no.
okay. I mean, because clay tile roofs, do you agree clay tile roofs have existed in Florida through many, many hurricanes?
Sure.
And they don't fly off buildings, even in high wind speeds. So I would question the actual, I guess, the veracity of the installer and the installation, the original clay tile installation to begin with, whether or not it was done properly. But I guess I don't have any other questions really. I just was curious as to why one would throw away a roof that costs 3 times as much for a cheaper roof. That's all.
I do want to know a little bit more about when this building was built. Do you know the exact year, or just Ron, do you know when that building was built? And if it was, when it was built, was it in the district?
Our records show that it was constructed in 2006. In 2006, that was not in the district. That would just became part of the district in January of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
I guess, Ron, the Nucio building, which is around the corner, is that in the historic district?
It is now. It wasn't in the district back then either.
When it came into the district, it had a metal roof?
It was built prior to it being in the district, and now it's part of the historic fabric. But it's a non-contributing structure, just as this one is. Mechanic Nucio's building on Boulevard?
Yes.
Yeah. It was built prior to it being in the district, as this one was, and it has that standing seam roof on
Are
it.
there
But
any-
no review was needed when that was constructed or when this building was constructed.
Right, because they weren't in the district.
They were not in the district.
Are there any other commercial buildings on the edge of the district that have metal roofs?
I showed two directly across the street, but they're outside the district.
They're outside the, any on the same side of the street?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I just wanted, am I allowed to talk?
We're in
I'm
the-
sorry.
we're in
Okay,
questions,
sorry.
yeah.
That's all.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't have any questions. Go ahead.
This is an indication of what we found damage-wise under the roof, where we pulled some of the barrel tile off when we first started demo. And it was not just one spot, it was numerous spots. And water did get into the building, so we, I hope that answers a little bit more of your question about.
Sure. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more questions, I'm going to consider, we'll give you the rebuttal. That should have been part of your rebuttal, but you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you so choose. Any other comments? The applicant, you have 5 minutes if you have anything else you want to add.
There are multiple buildings in the district that are commercial use that do have metal roofs that are in that area, and Scribner's error, whatever we want to call it. We're not looking to jump outside of your purview. We just want a good quality product that's not going to damage the neighborhood and other structures, people.
Sure, understood. All right, thank you very much. All right, at this point, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing and we will go to discussion.
Go ahead. No,
I can't.
What I'm really concerned about is that we're retroactively saying that replacing a clay tile roof in the district with a metal roof is okay.
Yeah, and I just can't, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's
It's a-
very difficult because it's very difficult. You know, I think one of the things that this board has to be concerned about is consistency of cases that come before the board and consistency of what we tell various applicants and different applicants, and not to have different messaging, either based on that one building is right on the edge of the district compared to one building is more in the center of the district. I don't know if this is appropriate, but for example, we had one case that just came before us last month that was a large residential building in which I think the request was made to replace a barrel tile roof with exactly, I believe this, with a metal roof. And we, I think if my memory serves correct, denied it and told them that the metal roof was not appropriate for the district and for their buildings, which were also in the same Mediterranean style. So I think that if there's some hesitancy that at least I'm having is the issue of, consistency of messaging to those in the district, and unfortunately, that means that for that large residence, they had to bear a cost of going forward with a barrel tile roof. And unfortunately, maybe for this applicant, it means undoing something that unfortunately was done, and understanding that means real dollars for a foundation, and that's not lost on me. But the concern that I have is really consistency of messaging and if we decide to do this, that somehow we have to create why this is being approved when just make sure that we can say why this is an exception.
Yeah, I think the previous case we were discussing was, that we discussed in the past, they were trying to go to a shingle. They were trying to go to a colored asphalt shingle, but not to a metal.
But they didn't want, they were trying to get away from the barrel tile as well,
But they were,
believe.
yeah, and.
Well, I would tell you, that case architecturally, was not as prominent as this one. This is so prominent that this should be a clay tile roof. None of this is easy. This is unfortunate. This would have been caught if the process had happened the way it was supposed to happen. Not pointing fingers, I completely understand. After a hurricane, why a roofer gets mixed up. So that's not the issue, but the issue is architecturally, this building is supposed to have a clay tile roof.
Right, and then there's, the applicant attempted to make some points that the metal roof is safer. The pieces of the metal roof aren't gonna fly off. Pieces of metal roof fly off metal roofs all the time. They may not be as heavy as a piece of clay tile, but roofs of all kinds fail under various conditions, and most of it has to do with the quality. It's not the roofing material itself, it's the quality of the installation, okay? Clay tile roofs have been sitting on houses that they've been through hurricanes for 100 years, and they've been through 20 hurricanes, and not that nothing got broken, nothing got damaged, but that you have the appropriate underlays, you have the appropriate substrates, you have the appropriate nail down and foam down, or whatever installation that's needed in high velocity, or we're not even in a high velocity zone. But it was a good point that somebody made, that the building was built in 2006, so that it did have to meet Florida Building Code, Florida hurricane, wind speeds and everything else like that. They've gotten a little bit faster or higher in subsequent years. But I'm just trying to say, I don't think the argument that one roof is safer or more wind resistant than another is the right argument to accept the change.
The design guidelines are very clear on this, very clear.
Yeah.
So I think it's a stretch to make an argument. And to your point, that's a tertiary argument, because it's very clear what you're supposed to do and specifically what you're not supposed to do. And unfortunately, the standing seam roof satisfies both of those, so.
Right. If we were to approve a Spanish, even a modern Spanish, nouveau Spanish colonial structure to be built in the district today, we would not approve it with a standing seam metal roof.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, so, go ahead.
Okay, move to deny a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 25-00001111 for the property located at 912 West Platt Street, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is inconsistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. The proposed roofing material is inconsistent and is inappropriate for the historic district. based on the guidelines presented for the design guidelines of Hyde Park and the guidelines presented by the Secretary of the Interior.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The, is denied.
Feel bad.
Sorry for that. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to receive and file submitted documents and exhibits.
I move to receive all submitted documents, exhibits, drawings, and testimony.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you for your time. The meeting is adjourned.
I chose the 16th floor because I knew it was going to preserve my breathtaking view of downtown